More migrant centers coming.
Yeah, yeah, man. That's dealing with this homeless issue finally.
Five, five new migrant shelters with a combined capacity of nearly 2,500, including a former Marine Corps Reserve Center and the former Broadway Armory in Edgewater, are activated to accommodate those coming to our sanctuary city.
And did they? Has the rate slowed, or is it about the same, or has it picked up?
It's I guess it's difficult to say. I'm not sure. We got the indication from Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, that he was going to continue to send those who came across the border illegally and who wanted to reside in Chicago to Chicago. So I assume that will continue.
And understand that Eric Adams in New York City is actually sending some of those he's received to other cities. So
Sure, yeah,
yeah.
right. Like initially we had back in the days of Mayor Triple Threat. Remember when she worked to send them out to Elk Grove Village?
Mm-hmm.
You want all the communities, all of our sanctuary communities in the sanctuary county of Cook, in the sanctuary state of Illinois. You want them all to share in this glorious exercise.
That's only fair, though. I mean, why should
I
why
agree.
should Greg Abbott have everybody who's crossed the border into Texas remain in Texas? This entire great country of ours should reach out and help. We should all lock arms and
But of course, have a
land.
Coke and a smile. We are the world. I mean, all of those things. There's no question. And so that's what BLM Brandon and company are doing, including, of course, his immigrant rights people, like Alderman Andre Vasquez, the chair of the City Council's Immigrant and Refugee Rights Committee. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. So everything's going well. Oh, by the way, um, have you taken a look at your property tax burdens lately? Oh, by the way, as we mentioned earlier, have you taken a look at CPS's performance per its 85% spend per pupil spend increase over the last 6 years? Oh, by the way, have you taken a look at the please, please clap, please stay? Did you see that Cranes piece?
Yeah.
Real estate guy, please stay. Now's not the time to leave. Now's the time to dig in. Dig in and do what? Just stay. Please clap. Please stay. For more on this, pleased to be joined by Ted Dabrowski, who is the president of wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Ted, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan, and good morning, Charles. Good to hear your voice.
Hey, man, it's good to hear yours.
Please stay. Not talking about the migrants. They're coming and they're going to stay. But the longtime Chicago residents who have an eye toward the exits. Ted, please stay.
Yeah, well, we always complain that maybe the Illinois are brain dead and that they're not reacting to what's happening, right? And that's our big complaint, certainly in how they vote. But as we keep seeing in the numbers, when we talk about the out-migration numbers, we see that there are a whole bunch of people who maybe are quietly acting, but they're just leaving. And, the stuff that's happening at CPS, nobody, we say it all the time, nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to raise it. Thanks for you guys hearing it out. But, CPS is shrinking. It's lost 116,000 kids in the last 20 years. And, I had never done this first graphic that we talked about today where the spending is up 85%. It's jumped from almost $15,000, a little over almost $16,000. It's jumped to almost $30,000 in 6 years. And yet, nobody can read there anymore. And nobody could read a grade level 5 years ago. Now it's even fewer. And it's the most sad, pathetic betrayal of Chicagoans who are paying lots of money. But it's not just Chicagoans, by the way. Illinois are dumping a lot of money into CPS, as is the federal government. And so it is a sad. I urge people to look at the piece we just put up today, this morning. It's a sad statement and a continuation of a debacle that continues.
And there's a fixed rate tax increase. It's fixed. We're going to get a tax increase from CPS as that part of the tax bill every year.
Well, it's not fixed, Charles. It's actually they have the option not to raise it, so they can raise it by as much as inflation, up to 5%.
But they do.
That's what they're going to do, and they're going to do it correct. They don't have to, but they're going to. And this has got the outrage of a lot of people. In Pilsen, for example, you've seen some of the property tax bills go up 50%, and people are livid. And now they're hearing this, and so it's of course not just in Pilsen; it's all over the place. And there's no stopping, and there's nothing to temper the arrogance of the administrators at CPS. There's nothing to temper the arrogance of the teachers union. They're just going to keep charging more and more for what is an absolute failed product. I mean, the more I look at this, the more I say, how can we justify even paying a penny to the unions and to the administrators?
Well, the interesting thing in Chicago, as you mentioned before, is you have commercial that subsidizes residential. So it's actually not as bad in the city proper as it is in a lot of the suburban areas, the collar counties. But it's getting there. Chicago's effective property tax rate as a percentage of home value is 1.57%. The national average is right around 1. So 1.57%. Where does that put us in terms of the big cities? And then let's fold in the commercial property tax rates too, so we understand exactly what we're paying for in terms of what we're getting.
Yeah, so as you have to remember, it's always been. And Daley was really smart. He knew that people hated property taxes, so he was an expert at putting in all kinds of fines and fees and all those kind of things where you get nickel and dime, but you can't ever point at the property tax. So it used to be really low, but then Rahm Emanuel hiked it several times. He did a record property tax hike. Then Lori Lightfoot continued it, and then she actually made it so that the property taxes would rise with inflation, like Charles said, kind of automatically. So now, compared to the big cities in the country, Chicago is now 13th highest. So it's catching up with the rest of Illinois. But really
by the way, just hold on that for a second too. I look at the communities above Chicago, higher property tax rates than Chicago. I see Detroit, I see Newark, I see Aurora, I see Milwaukee, I see Baltimore. I don't see a lot of towns, big cities that are killing it on that list with higher property taxes than Chicago. So maybe that tells us something.
Yeah, well, it's not a good club to be in, right? It's not a good club. It also means you're not growing. I think a lot of the major cities, with Houston being the exception on that list, which seems to have a high rate higher than Chicago's. It's where you've got problems and you're starting to rely on property taxes because it gets harder to do other taxation. And what's making it worse is that when you look at commercial properties, when you look at the 100,000 properties, the 1 million properties, the 25 million properties, Chicago's second highest. And so we've already got a problem in that we're already leaning on our corporate, even with Madigan reducing the taxes for big corporations the way he did. We're still the second highest. And so you add that problem, and then you throw in the doom loop where we know that commercial values are going down. There's going to be more and more of a push to shove all that property tax burden onto residential.
So
there's no way to see. We're spiraling.
So I mean, just again to put for some context here, Chicago's commercial property tax rate 3.78%. The only major city with a higher commercial property tax rate than Chicago is Detroit. So again, not the kind of company that you want to keep if the idea of growth and vibrancy is in your mind. And we're doing this at the same time. At the same time, we've got a 25% vacancy rate in downtown office space, and we've got a plan called LaSalle Reimagined to repurpose 5 million square feet of vacant commercial space on LaSalle Street into subsidized housing.
Yeah, it's crazy, is what I'd say. It's crazy, ludicrous, and the scale that we're talking about. To replace all this commercial, and especially if we put immigrants in there and stuff like that, they're not going to pay taxes. The taxes are going to be really low. So I think most of these things are just failed strategies, but they sound good, right? They sound They sound good to the.
Well, they sound good to
initiators.
anybody who wants to create a ghetto on LaSalle Street. I mean, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, so it continues the spiral that we talked about, and so then they make the schools worse, and then it just keeps going, and this is what worries me, and I think Charles said it right. I think there's a lot of people who are starting to smell this. They're starting to smell the problem, even some of the people who are on the left. The question is do we finally figure this out before we're in shambles? And you can just. I was just down in the city the other day, and I've been several times now, and I've seen a pretty good vibe. It feels pretty good if you're in the right spot. So the city is still a great place if you can avoid getting mugged, or you're not one of the guys paying these massive taxes. But the trend is not the right trend, and if once you start cutting into muscle, as they say, then you're in deep trouble. And can we fix this before we lose what we have?
Yeah, the city.
We haven't lost it already.
Yeah, the city is a great place if you're sitting on the deck outside Erie Street Cafe. Otherwise, it's kind of a problem if you own property, private or residential or commercial, or if you're walking around past 8 p.m. But otherwise it's pretty good.
Yeah. Otherwise.
Mayor Johnson is saying he wants to raise nearly $1 billion to deal with the disinvestment in certain neighborhoods, particularly the south and west sides. I mean, the governor is jawboned against this financial transactions tax, and so where is he going to get this money? Where do you think he's going to go to get this money? And he's vowed not to do the city property tax, the city's end of the property tax. Of course, they're going to get their school money for CTU, but where can he possibly go at this point?
Well, you're getting at a really good point, and he's boxed in, or at least he seems to be boxed in. So the Civic Fed did a pretty good job the other day of looking at all the different taxes. So yeah, he spoke about $800 million. He's talked about these different taxes: the city income tax, maybe a commuter tax, a financial transaction tax, a graduated real estate transfer tax. All these taxes he's hoping to raise tens and hundreds of millions from. But he can't do those alone. He has to go to the state to get the state legislature to pass those. Well, that's, Pritzker and others are going to be having their own problems of raising money for the state. So he may not get those, which leaves Johnson with the only alternative, which is the same one that Emanuel and Lightfoot used, which was property taxes. So, he's going to have to go against his own promise of not raising property taxes because that's his only alternative. He's never going to reform things, so it'll be property taxes, and he'll find some good excuse as to why he has to do it.
Ted Dabrowski, president of Wirepoints.org, all things Illinois policy related. Ted, thanks as always.
Hey, Dan, can I add one quick thing?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sorry. You were talking about the Albany, Georgia school. When I left Chicago when I was a kid, I went and lived in Albany, Georgia for my high school, elementary and high school years. So I know Albany well, and it's good to hear something positive coming out of Albany because that's a tough place. It's struggled a lot.
We're talking about he's referencing our discussion earlier in the show, the Life Preparatory School for Boys that was started by this gentleman named King Randall down in Albany, which is pretty impressive, and that young man is pretty impressive who started the school. So it is amazing when you encourage dynamism in a state and in a community. We should maybe think about that here.
Well, I'm going to check it out. So. All
right, very good, Ted. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Balance of Nature, changing the world one life at a time.
Before I was taking Balance of Nature, it was everything I had in me to do a full day. Now I have seen a big difference in my energy levels. It's awesome stuff. I just love the product. I am so glad I seen the commercial, went for it, and ordered me some. And then my husband said, "Have you seen that commercial of Balance of Nature? It's fruits and vegetables." And I looked at him and I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I think we ought to try it." And I says, "I am." And so I says, "I'll order you some." He loves it. I love it. We won't be without it.
Start your journey to better health with Balance of Nature. For a limited time this summer, get $25 off your first order as a preferred customer, plus a free fruits and veggies travel set with free shipping and our money-back guarantee. Go to balanceofnature.com or call 1-800-246-8751 and get this special offer by using discount code CHICAGO.
You can't live forever, but your legacy can. For over 185